This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Businesswoman murdered in Clarendon home invasion. Businesswoman 42-year-old Melissa Wright was gunned down during a robbery at her home in Clarendon last night. Her children reportedly pleaded with her attackers not to shoot their mother. She was shot several times. It is reported that Wright and her family were at home when about 7:30 p.m. they were pounced upon by two men who kicked in a door. The men, one armed with a handgun, the other with a knife, then entered the room where the family had gathered. Family members were ordered to leave the room while Wright remained behind. The men then demanded money from Wright and subsequently opened fire. The attackers then fled. The police were alerted and the injured woman was taken to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Meanwhile, People's National Party caretaker Richard Azan condemned the killing. "One of the major things I believe is that we have lost the love in our country and the respect for life and the culture of how we treat each other. We have to find a way to correct it," said Azan. "It is sad just a couple of months ago another murder was committed, couple chains away, where a garden fork was used to kill somebody," he said. Azan bemoaned that murders are now taking place in peaceful communities. Man killed, another injured in St. Mary gun attack. A man known only as Papa San was shot and killed on Wednesday night in the vicinity of a Jamaica National Bank branch on Main Street in Onoto Bay, St. Mary. The news understands that a man who is believed to be in his late 30s was pounced upon by unknown assailants who opened fire at him when he exited an ATM machine. Another man was also shot and injured during the attack. Investigations are ongoing. 300 new cameras to be added to Jamaica Eye. The Ministry of National Security is set to add 300 cameras to the Jamaica Eye network in the corporate area. More than 850 closed-circuit television cameras have been installed across the main towns of Kingston, Maypen, Mandeville, Ocho Rios, Negril, Montego Bay, Spanish Town, Santa Cruz, and the Black River. Minister of National Security Dr. Harris Chang says the 300 cameras will be strategically installed across downtown Kingston and Stony Hill later this year. Falmouth Transport Center to be renovated. The Trelawney Municipal Corporation has outlined plans to renovate the Falmouth Transport Center. Colin Gager, chairman of the Municipal Corporation, told the news that almost $9 million will be spent on the improvement works. The project is slated to begin this month. It will involve the installation of signs indicating the parking bays for taxis, plying the various routes, repair and expansion of the passenger shelter, and asphalting the entire park. Mr. Gager says the Trelawney Municipal Corporation has held meetings with the taxi associations, the Transport Authority, the police, and the Port Authority of Jamaica to discuss the upgrading. JTA head renews call for reintroduction of civics into schools. The Ministry of Education is being urged yet again to reintroduce the teaching of civics in schools. The call was made by the president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Winston Smith, during a virtual presentation at a meeting of the Lions Club of Kingston on Wednesday night. Pledges to have civics brought back into schools have gone unfulfilled. Smith described its removal from the national curriculum as a grave and a fundamental error. Some genius along the line figured that civic education is not important. Let us remove it out of the curriculum, so it was removed. And what do we have today? We have a society that is almost at a point of self-destruction, Smith argued. He charged that since then, schools have seen a rise in catastrophes in which students show little or no respect for their institutions or display discipline. Arguing that some parents too are indisciplined, the JTA had said that they continue to contribute to a system that tells children that it's not about the tightness of your pants learning and is not here learning. Smith, however, argued that this narrative will only perpetuate indiscipline in our society. Over the years, there have been public outcries against the schools which have turned back students over grooming, particularly hairstyles. In pushing back, institutions have argued that they have set their rules and that students must follow them. Smith argued that the JTA continues its efforts to promote order and decency in the society and encouraged Jamaicans not to dismiss the organizations as obstructionist, but to comprehensively listen to its reasoning. No rule for daily police diary entries, a court told. The investigating officer in businessman Michael Issa's case of indecent language, abusive language, and resisting arrest addressed the concerns on Wednesday about the lack of entries in the police diary, which recorded the defendant's past report about his missing licensed firearm. Detective Sergeant Michael Chisholm, who took the stand for a second time to continue his evidence-in-chief before the St. James Parish Court, was speaking in reference to the sequence of events which led to Issa being charged with negligent loss of a firearm from which his current charges stem. The firearm charge has been dismissed as the gun was reportedly found 2 days later. The police diary had been requested by Issa's attorney Michael Hemmings in order to compare entries with a statement submitted to the defense. The diary was entered into evidence on Wednesday. Responding to concerns that there were no entries in the diary prior to December 17, 2021, which he had previously identified as the day Issa reported his firearm missing, Chisholm said that there was no rule that the preceding day before an entry for a given date must be recorded. There is not a rule to say that, for example, the 16th of the month must be recorded. The entries must reflect the day when an incident occurred, he told the court. The matter did not progress much further as the clerk of the court indicated that she was not in a position to continue Wednesday's sitting as she did not have any notes on hand to refer to, and the prosecutor in charge of the trial was also absent. Additionally, Hemmings indicated that he wanted a copy of another entry he had seen while pursuing the diary before the book was entered into evidence. Issa's bail was extended to June 13, when the trial will continue. It is alleged that on January 13, 2022, Issa had visited the Montego Bay police station for an unrelated matter when Chisholm confronted him about failing to comply with instructions to bring in the firearm for testing, having reported that it had been found. Issa reportedly hurled expletives at the police and tried to pull away when they attempted to direct him into the station. He was subsequently arrested and charged. Issa's arrest occurred hours after the abduction and the murder of his 9-year-old stepson, Gabriel King. It is understood that the loss of the firearm was not connected to the death of the child. In the Klansman gang trial, a case adjourned as the defendant tested positive for COVID-19. The Klansman Wandon gang trial has been put on pause until June 13 as one of the defendants has contracted COVID-19. The case was adjourned this morning after Chief Justice Brian Sykes informed the Home Circuit Court that lone female defendant Stephanie Christie contracted the virus. As a result, the hearing was then adjourned to give the defendant time to recover. The prosecution was expected to continue responding to the no-case submissions from defense attorneys. The remaining 28 defendants are being tried on an indictment with 19 counts under the Criminal Justice Suppression of Criminal Organizations Act and the Firearms Act. Initially, 33 defendants were charged on a 25-count indictment. However, the counts were reduced to 19 after 6 were abandoned by the prosecution. 4 defendants, Damien Elliston, Rasheen Williams, Rivaldo Hilton, and Owen Armsby, were found not guilty by Sykes and were freed after the Crown indicated that it did not have sufficient evidence to prove its case against the men. While the 5th defendant, Dwayne Salmon, was freed after the judge upheld a no-case submission by his lawyer, Kemar Robinson, while rejecting an application from the prosecution to amend the indictment so that he could be charged with an additional count of knowingly providing a benefit to a criminal organization. Sykes, in rejecting the application, said that the amendment would cause a severe injustice to Salmon. The 31-year-old construction worker, who was alleged to be the gang's gunsmith and supplier, was initially charged with being a member of a criminal organization and illegal possession of a firearm, but the gun charge was conceded by the prosecution. Small businesses collapsing under COVID-19 economic pressures. Reports are emerging that more small businesses in Jamaica are collapsing because of the ripple effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the harsh economic conditions. Michael Leckie, president of the Small Business Association of Jamaica, says an unofficial count is suggesting that 40% of entities in the sector have ceased the operations after buckling under the extended pressure.
A number of businesses have been closed. Agree? This is about, I think, anecdotally about 40%. And what has caused that is not just about, look at it broadly now. You have to look at what COVID has caused, and you have to look at what the economic atmosphere is within the world, and inflation that is driving it. And small business pre-COVID, we have not seen the same sales, we have not seen amount of income coming in because there are no ballooning a number of prices. Not because of the e-commerce, but these are the other factors that are affecting it. We have to create a virtual office space for most persons. So most people work from home, but their addresses and the other services are done from our premises at Trafalgar Road. So that's reducing now their main fixed cost, which is rental, and is pretty high. Some people have to cut back on their personnel, and also they cannot afford to go to actually hire any more persons in order to outfit their stores with all of the sanitization stations. So what people are cutting back and actually making an effort to look at less cost, but yet be effective in satisfying the customer.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.